Welcome back to the Mentor Show, which offers quick lessons packaged within minisodes for busy founders and startup leaders like you. I'm Adel, and I'm being mentored live and unscripted by Ed, who's built, sold, turned around, and scaled startups all the way to the New York Stock Exchange. He's based in the US, a developed economy, and I'm based in Dubai, a hub within an emerging economy. And we compare notes. This is real talk, no scripts, no theory. Let's get into it. One of our guests shared with us her question. Her name is Emily Papas, and thank you, Emily, for sharing your question. Her question is: how can founders effectively manage their ego while fostering a collaborative environment? This, I think, brings other questions that related to topics we discussed on. Part of the ego is what brings the motivation. It's the narcissism that a founder could have to some extent that enables them or enables us to remain motivated. But sometimes it can go out of control.
I think Emily has asked an incredibly relevant question, and especially for the times that we live in where words can sometimes have an emotional reaction that aren't necessarily justified, but that doesn't stop the reaction from happening regardless. So let me first address the concept of ego. Oftentimes, it's presumed that this is how a person's sense of self or self importance manifests itself. If you listen to psychologists, they say that this is the part of the mind that mediates between instinct versus moral conscience and reality. All of these, I think, are just far too difficult for our purposes here. I look at ego and confidence as interchangeable ideas in this context. To Emily's question, a founder, a leader, any leader for that matter, needs to be conscious of the healthy and unhealthy parts of their ego and find a way to control them. If what you're really fostering is collaboration amongst a high performing team, which is, I hope, what you build when you're building a company, you have to take the word I out of a lot of your language. I think this, I think we should do that, or me is another one, another word that can sometimes help keep that constant awareness of the team dynamic. So, to effectively manage your ego, use some different language that keeps you front and centered on the notion that you're building a team. And without that team, you don't get the results that you need. So that's one bit of recommendation. The second is to listen to your team and see if there are other people that are struggling with ego. Because you might actually have really good team members that can produce terrific results. But if they're very me centric or I centric, they can actually shut down a lot of collaboration within that team or within their peer group or within their subordinates. Being conscious, starting with using team oriented language, is the best thing that a founder leader can do. And they can take great comfort in the fact that when it is appropriate for you to break a tie, when it is appropriate for a decision to get made, you do have the last word. And there's a high degree of freedom that comes with that knowledge. But in an ideal scenario, you'd like the team to own the decision, to own the outcome, and to own the work to get from where you are to where you want to be.
Building on her question, there's a saying: it's advisable if I want to move fast to do it alone and follow a dictatorship approach. And then if I want to do it for the long run, or if I want to be able to sustain a certain discipline to achieve a specific goal or build a specific culture, I need to do it with others. How true and relevant is it in this situation? Because if I want to move fast, I have less tolerance of being a team player. And I don't know whether that's the right thing or no, but that's an extreme approach. We don't have money, or we're fundraising, and we need to be conscious of our resources. So less democracy, just do what I ask you.
It's a good question. I'm going to make the statement based on the basis of our conversations in the recent past that if we're really looking to build a scale business and you're going to do that level of scale growth in a technology centric environment, you really can't get there without a team. I just don't see a way forward. So if a founder wants to take a single minded, almost dictatorial approach, then by definition, they're never going to scale with any degree of effectiveness. They may have a very good business that provides a nice income stream, but they're going to churn through good people because good people, smart people, people with any sort of ego are going to want to have a voice. That's the world we live in today. They may tolerate not having a voice for some period of time, but as you yourself know, if you go years and years being held back or being ignored, at some point you just say, enough is enough. I don't need to just work for a paycheck. I need something more. So I would say that the question you've asked, if you want to move fast, you can take a more singular minded dictatorial approach. Absolutely, you can do that. But you're going to do that at the sacrifice of scale growth.
This also brings the question of identifying blind spots. Sometimes, as a leader, it doesn't have to be also a founder. As a leader, when we have a team member that highlights certain risks or things that we have missed, it could be seen as someone being pessimistic because they're not speaking my language or they're not focusing on the positive side. They always see problems and things. And it could work against that person that highlights these negative things, and it might even impact the confidence of the rest of the team to share their thoughts or share their recommendations. Because me as a leader, I have a confirmation bias. I'm seeking information that agrees with what I believe in out of my experience, because I believe that my experience, based on previous successes, I believe that I will have the same level of success if we follow the same approach.
Well, if I understand the hypothetical that you're putting out there, I think that any leader, it could be the founder, it could be a co founder, it could be any executive on the leadership team, has to develop a very acute skill set, which is called listening with intent. And I'll say that today we live in a world where I don't think people actively listen. I think they have something to say and they're so intent on saying what it is that's on their mind that if you're very lucky, half their brain is processing what's being said in a group meeting, but the other half is probably thinking about how they're going to form their statements or questions or opinions to voice at the very first gap in the conversation. And that's assuming they even honor the pauses in a conversation. Because the second thing I've noticed in a lot of business conversation is people talking over each other. It's not really a conversation or a fair exchange of ideas. It's who speaks the loudest, who speaks the most frequently, and who speaks over someone that's trying to make a statement, right? Or ask a question. I think when you get that kind of personality in again, a high performing group or what you intend to be a high performing group, you've got to find a constructive way to change that dynamic because you may have a very talented team and you might say, gosh, they're passive because Joe over here is monopolizing 90% of the conversation. Maybe the team is not passive per se. Maybe the team has been trying to get a word in edgewise, but Joe just doesn't know when to shut up. And as a leader, you need to take charge of that situation. Now, it would be better if the team members were equally aggressive and would say, hey, Joe, I need to get a word in edgewise here, self-police the situation. But that comes usually with time and maturity. And sometimes it doesn't come at all. And so this is again where the leader, the CEO, you're orchestrating all of these human assets towards the greater good of the business that you've been charged with being responsible for. You're trying to manage all of these personalities that are hopefully high performing in their specific field of responsibility. And you're trying to get the best out of that group in terms of working together. So, you're a bit of a psychologist all the time because you're trying to help people realize their best effort, but also help them to mature as managers, as leaders in the company, and as people in general. As a CEO founder, you're going to have to learn how to listen actively. You're going to have to learn how to see how your people interact with one another. And at the appropriate time, you have to make some decisions about whether you call out bad meeting behavior, bad debate behavior in private or in public. There's no textbook for that because each individual situation is different. It's unique.
One of the Stanford programs, they recommended one approach where you pass a ball and whoever has the ball in the meeting will speak. So it will eventually solve that issue of people over talking or interrupting each other. I tried it honestly in our culture here. It feels awkward. I tried it in a manufacturing setting, and I felt like people were looking at me as if I'm nuts. I'm trying to try business school stuff that works in Silicon Valley, but not here.
It's an interesting tool that you've just illustrated there. On one level, it sounds very childish. And I think the people that resist it probably for really good reason because they think, my gosh, I'm a 30, 40, 50-year-old adult. Why do I have to take a ball before I start speaking? I think, though, people miss the point because what the ball signifies is a certain person now has the floor. Give them the courtesy and respect to let them speak. The ball symbolizes that fact in the situation. And unfortunately, going back to our earlier conversation, the ball would not be necessary if people would actually honor the pause in a conversation. And they actually don't. It's really interesting when you bring a tool like a ball that gets passed around to whoever is speaking into the mix because people will be uncomfortable. They might think you're crazy. And that's an opportunity for you as the CEO to say, look, this might feel silly. This might feel awkward. I don't really care. And here's why I don't really care. We're going to try this because in past meetings, this group does not do well with honoring the pause. This group does not do well with allowing equal time for other people to voice an opinion. Now, if you don't voice an opinion because you are too timid or too intimidated, that in and of itself is a problem that we will have to deal with one-on-one. So you're covering the entire spectrum of poor behavior and encouraging people to speak, but you're using a ball to help diffuse the challenges of individual personalities. Try it. I would absolutely support trying that in a group that's still trying to find its way in how to have a constructive conversation. It might work. You might actually get people that take offense. That's another problem all by itself. My God, if you don't want to try something new and you're going to take offense because of it, that makes me wonder if I believe you're an open-minded enough individual to think outside the box, right? But it's a great tool. I would certainly try it and see if it gets the kind of behavior that you want for a free and constructive group conversation with an exchange of ideas and problem solving.
That's it for this minisode. Big thanks to Ed and to all of you for tuning in. If this sparked something, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and make sure you share it within your network. Got a question for Ed? Drop it within the comments. See you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any affiliated organization. The content provided is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. We encourage listeners to conduct their own research and consult with relevant professionals before making any business or career decisions.